the Sinaloa Cartel. The name itself evokes a sense of dread. It signifies a powerful and ruthless criminal organization. For decades, this cartel operated in the shadows. It became the world's largest drug trafficking organization. The cartel's influence stretched far and wide, from the mountains of Mexico to the streets of America. The Sinaloa Cartel left a trail of violence and despair in its wake. It trafficked drugs, weapons, and humans. It bribed officials and silenced its enemies. The cartel's power seemed untouchable. But recent events have shaken the cartel to its core. A series of arrests and internal conflicts have weakened the organization. Is this the beginning of the end for the Sinaloa Cartel, or will it rise again from the ashes? This is the story of the Sinaloa Cartel, a story of greed, violence, and the unending war on drugs. The roots of the Sinaloa Cartel can be traced back to the 1980s. Mexico was then a major transit country for drug trafficking. Colombian cartels used Mexican routes to smuggle cocaine into the United States. A group of experienced drug traffickers saw an opportunity. Led by Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, they formed the Guadalajara Cartel. This cartel quickly gained control of drug trafficking routes. It established a powerful network of corrupt officials and hitmen. However, the Guadalajara Cartel was short-lived. Felix Gallardo was arrested in 1989. The cartel splintered into several smaller organizations. One of these splinter groups was the Sinaloa Cartel. The Sinaloa Cartel was initially led by Joaquin Guzman Loera, known as El Chapo or Shorty. Under his leadership, the cartel consolidated its power. It became the dominant force in the Mexican drug trade. El Chapo was a ruthless and ambitious leader. He expanded the cartel's operations. He forged alliances with other criminal organizations. He bribed officials on a massive scale, ensuring the cartel's impunity. El Chapo's reign was marked by extreme violence. Turf wars with rival cartels resulted in countless deaths. The cartel's hitmen, known as sicarios, spread terror throughout Mexico. They intimidated the population and silenced anyone who dared to oppose them. Despite his brutality, El Chapo cultivated a Robin Hood image in Sinaloa. He was seen by some as a benefactor who provided jobs and infrastructure. This image helped the cartel to maintain a degree of popular support. However, El Chapo's luck eventually ran out. After a series of daring escapes from prison, he was finally recaptured in 2016. He was extradited to the United States, where he is currently serving a life sentence. El Chapo's arrest created a power vacuum within the Sinaloa Cartel. Several factions emerged, each vying for control. This led to a period of intense internal conflict. The two main factions are the Mayiza, led by Ismael El Mayo Zambada, and the Chapitos, led by El Chapo's sons. The Mayiza is considered to be the more traditional faction. It focuses on drug trafficking and maintaining a low profile. The Chapitos, on the other hand, are seen as more reckless and violent. They are heavily involved in the production and trafficking of fentanyl. This deadly synthetic opioid has ravaged communities across the United States. The rivalry between these factions has resulted in a wave of violence in Mexico. Innocent people have been caught in the crossfire. The cartel's grip on power has weakened. This has emboldened rival cartels. They are now challenging the Sinaloa Cartel's dominance. Section 5. The Fentanyl Flood. The Sinaloa Cartel has long been a major supplier of drugs to the United States. However, in recent years, the cartel has shifted its focus to fentanyl. This synthetic opioid is highly addictive and extremely potent. It is much cheaper to produce than heroin. The cartel's fentanyl operation is highly sophisticated. It sources precursor chemicals from China. It then uses clandestine labs in Mexico to manufacture the drug. The finished product is smuggled across the border into the United States. Fentanyl has had a devastating impact on the United States. It is now the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45. The drug has fueled a public health crisis. It has overwhelmed law enforcement and healthcare systems. Section 6. The long arm of the law. The United States government has made dismantling the Sinaloa Cartel a top priority. Law enforcement agencies have stepped up their efforts to target the cartel's leadership, finances, and operations. They have conducted raids, made arrests, and seized assets. The Drug Enforcement Administration, or DEA, has played a key role in these efforts. It has agents working undercover in Mexico. They are gathering intelligence and building cases against cartel members. The DEA also works closely with Mexican authorities to apprehend high-level targets. These efforts have had some success. Several high-ranking cartel members have been arrested and extradited to the United States. However, the cartel remains a formidable organization. It has a deep bench of leaders and operatives. It can quickly adapt to law enforcement pressure. Section 7. The downfall of the kingpins. The year 2024 marked a turning point in the fight against the Sinaloa Cartel. In a stunning series of events, several of the cartel's top leaders were apprehended. These arrests sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld. The most significant arrest was that of Ismael El Mayo Zambada. He was captured in July 2024 in a joint operation by U.S. and Mexican authorities. Zambada, who had been a fugitive for decades, was considered to be the last of the old-school cartel bosses. His arrest was a major blow to the organization. In a surprising twist, Joaquin Guzman Loera, known as El Chapo, was apprehended alongside Zambada. Guzman, who had escaped from prison twice before, had been living a life on the run since his last escape in 2015. His recapture, once again alongside his longtime partner Zambada, signaled a victory for law enforcement, though the circumstances surrounding their capture remain shrouded in mystery. Adding to the cartel's woes, El Chapo's son, Joaquin Guzman Lopez, was also arrested in the same operation. Guzman Lopez, known as El Raton, the Mouse, was considered to be a rising star in the cartel. He was vying for control of the organization. His arrest further disrupted the cartel's leadership structure. These arrests were a major victory for law enforcement. They dealt a significant blow to the Sinaloa Cartel. However, the cartel is a hydra-headed monster. It is too early to say whether these arrests will cripple the organization or simply lead to a new wave of violence as factions fight for control. Section 8. The cartel's legacy of violence. The Sinaloa Cartel's rise to power has come at a terrible cost. The cartel's violence has left an indelible scar on Mexico. Tens of thousands of people have been killed in drug-related violence. Many more have been displaced from their homes. The cartel's violence is not limited to Mexico. It has also spilled over into the United States. Cartel members have been involved in murders, kidnappings, and other violent crimes. They have corrupted law enforcement officials and intimidated communities. The human cost of the cartel's activities is immeasurable. Families have been torn apart. Communities have been terrorized. The cartel's legacy of violence will continue to haunt Mexico and the United States for years to come. The fight against the Sinaloa Cartel is not just about reducing drug trafficking. It is about restoring peace and security to communities that have been torn apart by violence. Section 9. The future of the Sinaloa Cartel. The Sinaloa Cartel is at a crossroads. The arrests of its top leaders have weakened the organization. Internal conflicts have further destabilized the cartel. However, the cartel has a long history of resilience. It has survived previous crises. It would be premature to declare the cartel defeated. The future of the Sinaloa Cartel will depend on several factors. One factor is the outcome of the ongoing power struggle within the organization. If one faction emerges victorious, it could potentially restore stability and consolidate control. However, if the infighting continues, it could further weaken the cartel and make it vulnerable to rivals. Another factor is the effectiveness of law enforcement efforts. If law enforcement agencies can maintain the pressure on the cartel, it could further disrupt its operations and dismantle its networks. However, if the cartel can adapt and evade law enforcement, it could potentially rebuild its power. The Sinaloa Cartel is a symptom of a larger problem, the insatiable demand for illegal drugs in the United States. As long as this demand exists, there will be criminal organizations willing to supply it. The fight against the Sinaloa Cartel is a long-term struggle. It requires a comprehensive approach that addresses both the supply and demand sides of the drug trade.